to Saving People, Queering Things, the supernatural podcast where Cass and Dean have yet another intimate conversation right in front of Sam and Bobby. Because, that's just a thing that they do now.
Yeah.
Totally normal.
Must be Thursday.
Totally normal to do those this meaningful apology when your brother and your dad can hear. It's totally normal actions between the two of them today, as always. Yeah, today we're pulling up to season 5, episode 21, 2 minutes to midnight. And Noah, do you want to do the honors of saying which episode in the season this is?
We're at the penultimate episode.
Yay.
I can't get enough of saying penultimate because it's the coolest
best
fucking word. Yeah.
Every season. Mm-hmm.
That's because Noah has class, okay?
It's also great because no matter what, there's always a penultimate episode. Always. As long as there's 2 episodes, you're good.
Right. The first episode is also a penultimate episode.
It could be.
In shows with 2 episodes.
The shoe fit.
Does that mean like a movie that has a sequel
becomes
the first movie is
of the second one?
Becomes the penultimate?
I really enjoyed Into the Spider-Verse. It was a really good penultimate step before Across the Spider-Verse.
See, that makes it sound like you're dissing.
Yeah, that just gets too chaotic.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not, to be clear. Love both of those flicks. 10 out of 10. 10.
Okay, we're going to do introductions before we're totally off base. That's entirely my fault. I'm August. My pronouns are they, them. I'm one of your hosts today.
I'm Elayna. My pronouns are she, they. Hello.
I'm Noah. He, him. Howdy, howdy.
Now that you have officially been introduced to all of us, it is time to catch you up. If you haven't watched Supernatural recently, here's what you've missed on the road so far. Elayna, you're going to recap the show so far. Lead us up to this episode.
Allegedly, that's what's going to occur.
Whenever you are ready.
Listen, I was born ill-prepared. Let's do it.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Sam and Dean are brothers that are hunting monsters and demons and bad stuff. There's angels and there's demons, and they fight lots of things, like mostly the Winchesters. They just get mad at the Winchesters all the time. And then this season they've started the apocalypse, Sam and Dean have, and it's made things really tricky for everybody. And apparently Dean is the vessel of Michael, and Sam is vessel of Lucifer, and they're like kind of fighting against that. And now we're towards the end of the season where they're trying to figure out, oh God, how do we smite the devil?
How do we smite the devil? That's the real question right now.
Yeah.
And
terrible recap. Thank you for bearing with it.
No, you did.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. I appreciated how at one point in that recap you went into the perspective of the monsters.
Yeah, because I
suddenly they keep fighting the Winchesters. I was like, wait, who's fighting the Winchesters? The Winchesters are fighting the Winchesters?
No, the angels and the demons are fighting the Winchesters.
I mean, to be fair, the Winchesters are kind of also battling the Winchesters.
Constantly.
They're eternal demons and each other.
Winchester is fighting which Winchester?
John.
Answer. We're all fighting John.
Yeah.
At all times.
Giant cage match against John and John's memory.
Gotta love it.
Okay, now you get to recap this week's episode, 2 minutes to midnight, the penultimate episode.
I'm ready. The penultimate recap right here.
Show us what you got.
The penultimate recap of the Kripke era.
Okay, well, that's a lot more pressure than I was ready for.
I love how penultimate can either make something seem more important or less important depending on how you use it.
Yeah, it's a multi-talented
Right now, it's very
word.
important. Right now, it's very important, Noah. Like,
a little
what's
too
it?
important.
What's the drag race? Like, don't fuck this up.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, not to forget.
We don't want you to have to sashay away from Supernatural, okay?
I could never.
That's
Okay,
I'm glad that's on record now, Noah. You've said you could never. So if it comes to a point where you're like, this show is so bad,
I'm gonna sashay away.
We're gonna pull this episode out, and you're gonna be like, I'm never
say no. We have you contractually locked in because of a thing you accidentally said several years ago.
Whoops.
We'll come back to that when we get to whatever ends up being the season you hate the most. I don't know which one that's going to be. I'm not sure.
I have guesses.
What's your guess about what season Noah's going to hate the most?
Me?
Yeah.
My guess?
I'm curious.
I think it's easily going to be season 7.
Easily. I mean, okay, if that's the season where Bobby dies, then fuck yeah, that's that one.
I think that they're season 7, maybe.
Yeah, I think he's going to hate season 7.
I also don't know how he's going to feel about 12.
Yeah, 12 is not good.
12 wasn't my favorite. 10 is my doctor till the day I die.
Amen.
Okay.
I love Peter Capaldi to death, but
Capaldi's
Tennant.
great, but he's not Tennant.
No.
I mean,
Who could be?
no.
He's got
And
his doctor's number in his name.
Mr. David Tennant, anytime you want to come on the show, we'll have you. We'll talk about Supernatural. That'd be great.
no, we'll do a Super Hulock episode.
We'll have a
That's what
special
we'll
Super
do.
Hulock episode with David
Listen,
Tennant, and it'd be so
Don't
good.
even play with me, okay?
Okay, I'm gonna count you in.
Sounds great.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so the boys, Bobby, Crowley, and Cass are all on the same team, question mark? Trying to find Pestilence so they can lock up the devil, and also Death. They're trying to find Death and Pestilence. So like some fools who have never played D&D, they decide to split up the party because, hey, nothing bad happens when you do that. So they go after multiple rings at once. Dean sits down with Death, gets an entirely new perspective on the apocalypse and how things might turn out. Cass shows up and is like way more human, but still trying to help, and basically tells Dean he loves him.
Yeah,
Said
Yeah.
what he said.
Right? I mean, that's basically what he does.
pretty much it was like, I'm here for you.
I'm here
My
for
body-
you.
My
I'm your
body
pal.
is human, can't do anything, and I feel kind of useless, but
You're not the burnt and broken shell of a man I thought you were.
I'm so glad you said it because that was one of the only handwritten notes that I have was just broken shell.
it's so genuine. He says it so genuinely.
So heartfelt.
Like he thinks
He's
that
so
Dean
happy.
is going to be like, oh, thank you, Kath. That means so much to me to hear.
Yeah. And you know Dean is thinking about, he's like, thank you.
Like,
Thanks for that.
he's suddenly very, very glad this is a phone call and not an in-person conversation where
Yeah.
Bobby and Sam can hear that, because Kath would still say it if Bobby and Sam were
Absolutely.
actively listening.
Yeah, 400%.
Oh my God.
Oh, Cass, despite being human, still so, or like human-esque in this episode.
Mm.
Powers of a human. Now, before we jump into the episode itself, time to pick some music to add to our season mixtape. Here is what we have this week. Noah.
Ooh, this week I went with a fun little song that it's called I Miss the Future by Lost Kings featuring Jordan Shaw. And it's a kind of haunting but fun, really kind of tune about I miss all the flights that we had planned, all the shows that we had tickets to, everything that was our future that we thought about before everything changed and everything shifted and all of that became stuff that we never had. So how do you miss something that you never actually had, but you felt like you had? And I kind of feel like that's how Dean's kind of looking at his current situation.
That feels like it goes along really well with the line from Sam about like, you remember when we used to hunt,
Mm.
you know?
Yep.
Yeah, like when we used to hunt small things.
Little
It's
things.
kind of that nostalgic,
Now.
almost nostalgic for it, and also going like, we in the future, that's not likely going to ever be the case again.
No.
That's a good pick.
What about you, Elayna?
So my mixtape suggestion for this week is by an artist that we often recommend on this podcast, Human by John Bellion. Yeah, totally an original thought I had to put this song on here.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, it's good times, but it's got a lot of lyrics that I think are representative of like the mood of this episode. That one of the big ones is like, the pastor tells me I've been saved, I'm fine. Then please explain to me why my chest still hurts. Like, oof.
Hits
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah. And the chorus is literally just I'm just so sick of being human, which I think is a big Winchester mood. So
Constantly. They're the poster boys for that.
yeah. They're just like, I mean, if I could just like not exist for a bit as a corporeal being, that would be clutch.
They have sort of said that at least 3 different times this season.
Indeed.
So,
Yeah.
And Cass, feeling pretty human in this episode is also like, actually, I hate this.
Yeah. I would
what
like
am I supposed to do with this dumb weapon?
have to get an
Yeah.
airplane ticket.
This freaking, what was it? I saw somebody refer to a human as a wetware android. Like,
Oh, I hate that. Never say that
so
again.
cursed. Oh my God.
No, absolutely no.
Wetware.
Oh,
Oh, God.
no.
Sorry, listeners. We've cursed you all as well.
If I had to hear it, it's got to stay in the
It's
the
got to
edit.
stay in there. So,
I didn't know everybody's gonna have such a visceral reaction to that one.
wetware androids.
I just thought it was goofy when I heard it.
Ugh.
Powerful
Okay.
is what it is.
Okay.
August, how about you?
Bye.
August, what's your mixtape song?
My pick today is Friend of the Devil, specifically the cover by Mumford and Sons, but it's originally The Grateful Dead.
Oh, love Mumford and Sons.
I'm a big fan of Mumford. His sons, though.
Yeah, they're a little dicey.
Rude.
The first verse talks about like being trailed by 20 hounds, didn't get to sleep last night. It's very much about like, making deals with the devil, running from the devil, running to the devil, the devil sort of like tricking you. I think, we're thinking about Sam and this potential plan of like, what if I say yes and I jump into the box? It seems a bit like that whole like the concept of a deal with the devil is very much kind of embedded in this song. And so I think this song fits pretty well. Yeah. And the Mumford and Sons cover is a really nice one. There's been a lot of covers of this song, like many of them are good, but
very popular song. But Mumford and Sons takes it home.
Yeah. Yeah, now that we've got our mixtape, it's time for this week's hunt. And today we're exploring the 21st episode of season 5, which is 2 Minutes to Midnight. And this week's tarot card from the Supernatural deck is the Hierophant card from the Supernatural Tarot deck. So the Hierophant is a card that does feature the character of death. So, and I'll read from the card information in this specific Supernatural deck. So, the Hierophant Tarot card advises you to put order to chaos using time-honored structures and traditions. Now isn't the time for rebellion, questioning the status quo. Showing respect for established institutions and hierarchies will benefit you in the long run. And then reversed, this card talks about symbolizing the need to shake up traditions and question rules and blaze your own, the description uses words like blaze your own trail, create a path that works better for you, which I think is interesting when you talk about like death and like structures of death and like also death being controlled by Lucifer in this episode. I think this card works well, not only because death is on it, but just because of like all those connections. Elayna, do you have anything to add from your knowledge of tarot in this card?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. So this card, the Hierophant specifically, I pulled up the definition of what a Hierophant is, because I know when I first got into tarot, I was like, I've never heard this word before. So what the heck? It's a very strange word that doesn't come up in common conversation. But the definition of a Hierophant is a person, especially a priest in ancient Greece, who interprets sacred mysteries and esoteric principles. In the one description, Biddy Tarot is a really great website that has like lots of information about tarot cards if anyone's ever interested in, doing their own research. But some of the stuff that they have listed is that it is a masculine counterpart to the High Priestess, also known as the Pope or the Teacher in certain other decks. And basically, traditional tarot depicts it as, just this old guy sitting in a chair and, like holding sacred objects. And it just deals with like, sacred teachings and, things that are kind of more esoteric in nature. And so I think it's really kind of cool to have this card be the one for, an episode where we're discussing literally the personification of death showing up, and that's who's on the card. Death is kind of this series' mythical figure that exists outside of a lot of the other things that they're used to dealing with. And I think that makes it a fun card for the episode.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure. Now, bonus points to either of you if you can stick Hierophant into a sentence naturally in this episode when we talk about the rest of it. I'm waiting for that. So,
Just wait for a cut in the episode where I'm talking at a normal volume and then out of nowhere it's Hierophant in a completely different tone that I've just put in while I'm editing.
In like an automated Google talk voice.
Okay, AI voice. It's like it's the Google Home voice.
Hierophant.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay.
I mean, if we're going to start off talking about death, let's start off talking about death because he
talk about an entrance.
Takes the whole street.
Honestly, rivals Cass's entrance. And I do not say that lightly. This entrance and Cass's entrance, I think are the two best entrances of any character in the show ever.
Depending on which most shows you ask me, I will say one or the other.
Like I get chills watching
every
that
time.
scene.
That Jen Titus cover of the song "Oh Death" is so good.
I feel like when I first heard it, the first time I heard it, just remembering my jaw just sort of dropping at those lyrics, the hauntiness, the coloring, the way the cameras are, like the camera angles, like everything about that scene is done perfectly.
The way it switches from slow-mo to normal speed and back so smoothly is
I have no fucking notes for that episode moment. It's just so good.
It was very, very good. I also love just the implications of him and Dean chit-chatting in a pizzeria with 20 plus dead bodies around them. Just
that's just how Dean rolls.
It's just how he
It's just how he garlic knots.
It is
great.
sort of iconic to me that, like, of the four horsemen, Death feels not the least intimidating, but Death is the most casual. Like,
Yeah.
Death is the only one that's like, you know what?
So
Take a seat.
relaxed.
Have some pizza with me. Like, Death is trying the most to be like a human, while being the least like a human.
Very threatening, but also is just a guy. It just looks, he just looks like a little guy. It's no big deal. But also,
Death
he's
is just a little
terrifying.
Julian Ritchie, who plays
Oh my
Death,
God.
is so
Amazing.
good. And also, like, and it's such a sweetheart. Like, he is, like, panels with him at cons. He's so kind.
Oh yeah.
He's just like this gentle old gentleman, and
He's a
just like
delight.
he's an absolute fucking delight.
That's
You watch
good.
panels with him, he doesn't remember half of the stuff from the show because he's like, you know, it's
Yeah.
many years ago, but he's so, yeah, like it's
He'll
such a good
try.
performance. It's such a good performance, and so different from the way he carries himself just in general. He's not intimidating
he's just
at
like
all.
a loosey goose little dork.
Okay, good. I love that.
There is a really incredible fanfic that is end of season 15 fanfics. I won't like give the plot points away, but Death features in that story, and also a kazoo features in that story.
I mean, as a fanfic about season 15 involving Death.
Anyway,
Gotta
there's
have a kazoo, right? I mean,
there
it's the next
is-
logical step is a kazoo.
Clearly.
Anyway, that's a different story. We had friends who did photo ops with kazoos and Jensen for a fic. The fic I'm actually thinking about is a different fic that does involve Death and also involves a very silly hat. And so I had friends who took a very silly hat and Julian Ritchie wore it in a picture. And it was very funny. It was a very funny picture. He's very disarming because he's in his, it was like a photo op where he was dressed as Death. So he's in the trench coat.
Oh,
He's
goodness.
he's got the cane and
The tiny
wearing
little
this like
cute hat.
bright pink. I think it might have been octopus. I want to say octopus. I think that's incorrect. Someone who is listening to this who knows the people who were involved in this and wants to link, like, tweet us the picture so that people can see it. I know I know several friends who were involved in that who listen to this. Anyway, sorry for absolutely butchering the telling of that story.
No.
But all that to say, Death wearing a cute hat and Julian Ritchie being an absolute gem of a person and fucking phenomenal performance. The way he eats the pizza, the way he cuts the pizza.
And I loved how the panel that we saw him at in Nashville, like he was talking about that moment in the show. And he's like, I just sat there, actually eating the pizza because I didn't realize we were going to have to do 20 takes of this scene. And so by the time we get to the end of it, I've eaten like 5 pizzas.
And Jensen's like an old pro at this, not eating any of it because
he knows there's going to be a bunch of different takes. And so it was.
Yeah, because he's been eating burgers every other episode for 5 years.
Yeah.
He just had a whole thing with Misha about just a few episodes ago.
Yeah. Yep. Misha had the same. Misha had the same thing. Like Misha finally had to eat on camera just a few episodes ago. And did he really eat, or did he learn from Jensen's tips about spit out the food, don't eat the food? But in that conversation is a really big deal because Lucifer's got a leash around Death,
which is very
What a
interesting.
sentence.
I mean, when they've talked about the 4 horsemen, and it's hard to conceptualize those 4 horsemen without some of them, Death specifically, being way more powerful than the others. Death is a constant in reality that we live in. So it's like,
it's like you don't always have disease, you don't always have war, you don't always
or
have
famine. But there's always going to be death.
Yeah,
in
death
some
comes
form.
for us all.
Yeah, you can't cheat death, Dean.
I found really interesting the acting choices by Jensen and the directing choices because, we've seen Dean opposite of opponents that want to kill him many times, and usually he does not allow himself to look scared
Or flustered.
or vulnerable. But he knows there's no point with death. This is literal death. This is the thing.
When he's having that conversation, how would you feel if a bacterium came up to your table and started talking?
Oh my God, that line has always fucking sent me into oblivion because what?
Yeah.
It's such a good line. Also, new lore just dropped.
Yeah.
Multiple universes.
Multiple universes, and
Death
death
said it
exists
first.
outside of them. So that's pretty great.
Yeah.
So that comes back to, so yeah, if death is one of the four horsemen, then surely Lucifer had to do some sort of sneaky blood binding spell stuff to get death in his leash, type stuff.
Yeah, because also it doesn't seem like the other three horsemen are at the same level as death. Like death says,
No.
I've existed. I don't know if me or God existed first.
He's like, we don't know. We forgot. Like they chat and they've talked multiple times across the millennia, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't really remember
which of us got here first.
Yeah. Wild.
It's a hell of a piece of lore.
Though the picture of like the picture that death paints of this, like it's imagine if your coworker, like Chuck's bratty kid comes into the office and then starts like ordering you around, and his dad's fucked off to who knows where, and somehow this kid manages to blackmail you or however into doing his bidding. Like that's the situation Death's in. He's so fucking pissed about it.
Yeah.
So done. Can't stand it.
Yeah, he's over it.
Which is fair. I get it.
But Dean really just kind of goes like, okay, is this the part where you kill me? And actually seems more scared of that than with anyone else, because with anyone else, I feel like he understands that death could make it stick. When other people, he's like, well, the angels will bring us back. But like, if death kills you, I don't know.
Especially with his own scythe.
Very good.
I also choose to believe that Crowley knew that death was in the pizzeria the whole time. And he just wanted to make it dramatic and be like, well, let's stop for pizza first and just go do that. And make it look like it was just an accident that they bumped in there just because he's dramatic. Because when he goes to go check the building, he pops over there and pops right back. Oops. Boy, is my face red. He's not in there. Oops.
He's so unsurprised by that fact. Okay, yeah. Crowley, this episode, Crowley just goes off. Crowley's dialogue is incredible.
Crowley's so good.
Crowley, they knew we needed a new snarky kind of, they knew we needed a new snarky non-human character after Zachariah.
Yeah.
And they gave us Crowley.
Yeah.
And he just inherited that torch.
He took it and ran with it.
He
does things like and scene, like meta things like that are just so funny.
It's so good.
I love how meta Crowley gets.
Also, how queer as a character he just is in his just sort of existence in all of his lines of dialogue.
Which brings us to
yes,
one of the biggest moments.
So glad we got to this point.
The end of the last episode was Crowley propositioning Bobby to sell him his soul. And so...
Loan him. He's loaning it.
Loaning him, yes.
Yes, allegedly.
Allegedly.
This isn't a typical demon deal.
No, this is the Crowley that we're dealing with. The Crossroads King, which that's another example of him being snarky. Like, hello, Crossroads King, like, what's up? But he convinces Bobby to go through with the deal because Bobby needs Death's location. So obviously.
Yeah.
So then the boys, when they find out, first of all, them being like, what the fuck is
being
great.
Like, we have not learned a single damn thing from the past 4 seasons about
just the past
selling
4
souls.
Episodes. Like, yeah, geez, like, what is happening? We had to talk Dean down, now we had to talk Sam down, and then Bobby.
Now Bobby's out here just fucking flinging his soul out there.
Didn't even give anybody the opportunity to talk him down. He just said, I'm doing it.
Normally Bobby is the level-headed one, the one that's like, he's the one that slaps the boys alongside the head and is like, what kind of idiotic decision did you just make? But this time it's Bobby being like, well, I'll roll the dice with my literal soul, despite the fact that 2 seasons ago Dean did that and Bobby gave him absolute hell for it.
Unintended.
Well, I think it's unintended. I hate to say this, but I think it's because I think in a weird way Bobby sees this as like an out of like, well, I'm already screwed, so if I'm going to be screwed, I might as well do it in a way that will help the boys.
Right, we're out of options.
Himself is helpful, even though he doesn't see himself in that light throughout most of the season.
This is a way he can be an asset to the team.
Yeah, it's sad, but I think it's where Bobby's operating from.
And then Sam, his first instinct being,
Jason?
What do I know about demon deals?
I know the important stuff about this deal right now.
They're sealed with a kiss. Hey, Bobby, did you kiss him? And Dean being like, Sam, hey. And then the silence as they both look at him, like, hey, Sam, don't ask that. But also, Bobby,
now that we've asked.
did you? And the long pause before the no, and then just the slow turn to Crowley with the picture was so fucking good. I was dying.
Crowley,
It was so brilliant.
he took a
I love
selfie.
Why'd you take a picture? Why'd you have to use tongue?
Crowley took a flip phone selfie.
The way that they
he's
look
an
at him
icon.
though when they turn around on the why did you have to use
So good.
so good.
Oh, bisexual Bobby confirmed.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
also like just queer as hell Crowley. Like
Queer
Yeah.
as
we
hell.
already knew this, but it's just throughout this episode. There's all these little
Oh my
jokes,
It's so good.
and for the most part, I think they're quite funny jokes.
Yeah, very much so.
Would agree.
Okay, but also then we come back to Bobby's deal again, like later on in a
Okay.
couple scenes
Oh
later.
yeah.
Yes, which is honestly the best way to do it, because if they had been talking about this, Bobby loaning his soul out, if they'd done that big reveal and then Crowley had said, oh, I also added this little addendum here to help you out with that problem. If he had done it right there, it would not have had the same impact. He would have been,
Way less
floundering
funny.
for their
Yeah.
affection and their trust. But then doing it after he's already earned their trust and after they've already decided to go with him, and then being like, oh yeah, by the way, I did this forever ago. You could have been walking all day. Like, what?
It kind of reveals that like Crowley, for all of like him being out for himself, it kind of like shows his hand a little bit. Like he did this
Yeah.
nice thing
He
that
cares.
he absolutely didn't
Yeah.
have to do.
Mm.
And he didn't do it, and he didn't like immediately throw it in their face before they trusted him. He didn't use it as a bargaining chip
Yeah,
Yeah. It was just
to
a
earn their
caveat.
trust. Mhm.
which is
This
great.
there.
It's so wholesome of him.
Yeah. I've always loved how that scene plays out.
It's also just so funny, like the placement of it, like from a storytelling perspective, makes it way funnier because we come back to it, and because then you also realize that like Crowley has known that Bobby could just get up and walk for I don't know how long it is in the timeline, but like quite a while.
A big
Yeah.
enough gap.
Yeah.
At least a few hours, maybe up to a day. I can't remember
Yeah.
the exact timeline of this episode, and that's funny.
It's good.
He just waited for the best moment. He waited for the funniest possible moments to reveal that information.
Bobby's smile when he gets up and looks at Dean is very wholesome and touching.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I think he needed it as a character, but it's fine.
No,
It would have been more
and I think-
interesting to see a wheelchair-bound hunter.
Yeah, and they didn't. I feel like that's a little bit of a missed opportunity because like we kind of had one episode where we got to see Bobby fighting
Yeah, in
in
action.
the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And he's been in the wheelchair for most of the season.
a little underused.
Yeah,
To be
they
fair,
didn't- I don't think they went about that as well as they could have at all, because it's mostly just Bobby being like, I hate my life, I hate my life, I hate my life.
I want to
Which,
die.
I mean, obviously, like I think anybody that has walked previously who then suddenly can't, that's obviously a huge adjustment you have to make. But
Yeah.
just the way he responds is a little regrettable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't really flesh out the like nuances of like what's it like for him to be in a wheelchair. They just
Yeah.
kind of like it's just kind of a plot point where suddenly they don't let him do as much as
Yeah.
he did previously,
Which
which
it's
is
another way
yeah.
to further the man pain.
Yeah.
And then they write it out conveniently
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And like as funny as it is, and
Yeah.
as much as I'm like, plot wise, it's pretty funny, and the way they do it is pretty enjoyable. The overall execution is like, C minus.
Leaves a bit to be desired.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I thought it was a very interesting touch to involve the swine flu so heavily. Okay.
That was
'cause-
a big deal that year,
2009. This episode's coming out early 2010.
which is so funny
Like
to
March.
me
I think it's
because
March of 2010. This episode comes out.
y'all were both still like pretty young when that was like
Yeah.
a thing.
Oh, I mean, I was like a
You were like a teenager. at
American.
that point.
I was like trying to think of American high school years. I was
You a homeschooler?
okay. I'm like it goes freshman, sophomore, junior.
Yes, senior.
I was a sophomore in school. I was just about finished my sophomore year of high school
Really?
in 2010. Anyway, the point I'm making is that I do remember swine flu
Anyway,
and swine
yes.
flu fear
Yeah,
quite well.
I remember it a little bit, not as in detail as I remember this most current pandemic.
But yeah, but like it was a really big deal. And it's
Mhm.
just funny to think about how much of a big deal that was versus now having lived through COVID. Like
I will say I like some pandemic storylines, but I like in shows in general, like I think that can be a really interesting storyline or plot point. You know, things like The Last of Us are incredibly well done, but they're also done like knowing the pandemic will go through. It's always interesting to see media that did pandemic kind of things before the COVID-19 pandemic, because there's some things that are weird to see in retrospect, you know?
Yeah.
The way they're telling those stories, it's very clear that like we didn't know what it was like from any lived experience. Like none of these writers had lived experience with a pandemic. All of these writers do now. But the swine flu, I think, is a good touch, like topical for that era.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, especially because it still tracks as a plot point without knowledge of the current time placing, you know? There are kids that didn't live through that it still tracks because pestilence is still, you know, a big problem that spreads disease. And it's like, okay, yeah, it still totally makes sense. But it preyed on a lot of the paranoia of the time, especially Southern paranoia that, you know, experienced.
I can't even imagine what that was like.
Which was not great.
Like the whole vaccine, the way they do that vaccine storyline too, of like the evil people are creating a vaccine that's actually a virus. Also, that storyline also hits a little funky now.
I had not considered it until you said that.
Yeah,
I don't love that.
The way that they were talking about that is how I saw a lot of people talking on Facebook and
in person.
And it was like, hey, whoa.
Don't take the vaccine because they're going to infuse you with their
virus. Like,
Supernatural writer's room accidentally / with
every so
unawarely
often they stumble into like Oracle of Delphi level prophecies.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just like, you know, we talked about the supernatural writers being pro-choice back in 513. Now they're a little bit anti-vax, and I'm like, we win some, we lose some.
We win some, we lose. You know,
would you say that some of the writers would behave as if they were a Hierophant?
I swear to God.
I can't be real.
I tried so
I've already
hard.
forgotten what the definition of a Hierophant is.
Now, I forgot the definition of a Hierophant 20 seconds after it was read to me, but
hold on, I still haven't.
I'm trying to make sure that definition works in the sentence.
A person, especially a priest in ancient Greece, who interprets sacred mysteries or esoteric principles.
So,
priest of Delphi. Yeah, you nailed that one.
I'll give you that reference. That
was good. Bonus points to Elayna.
Yeah,
gold star.
I win. Everyone else go home.
Another really topical reference that I thought I really enjoyed was the Zombieland reference.
Yes.
Like this time next Thursday we'll all be living in Zombieland, which is a reference to the 2009 movie. Like this movie had just come out like 5 months before this episode. So it's like the super topical reference, and it's great. Zombieland, still one of my favorite. I love Zombie.
I've actually never seen it.
Oh my God, you've never seen Zombieland? Oh
no.
Jesse Eisenberg, Woody Harrelson.
I know.
So funny.
I'm very familiar with it. I've just never seen it.
We will have to come back to a movie night of that of some kind because it's
okay. Thanks everybody for tuning into our Zombieland podcast. This episode, Elayna hasn't watched it.
It's also like such a fun, and I love when media references other media about like the same similar topic, because you know, like this episode has a lot of references to pop culture depictions of like pandemics and zombies and you know.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's good. I loved the team of Bobby, Cass, and Sam.
Yes.
That trio was very powerful and very good. When they pull up to the loading dock, and Bobby's like, the first truck doesn't leave for an hour. And they're like, well, that truck right there, that one's going. Balls. Good. It's good. That's classic Bobby.
It's such a fun team up too, like that combination. Like it's fun I like when we get to see Sam or Dean hunting with someone that's not each other, because like when they hunt together, they have a really specific choreography kind of style they fall into. Whereas when you throw different people into it, like you get a different fight when it's Sam and Cass and Bobby.
Yeah. It was very good.
It makes it fun to watch because it just mixes it up.
Yeah. And Bobby paying attention to Sam during, you know, seeing him in action saving people was really sweet to see from that perspective.
And then to have him mention it later.
Oh, so good. Because that's who Bobby is. You know, he's the person that recognizes when people are putting in their effort and putting in their heart and soul into what they do.
And just a few episodes ago, like Bobby was checking in with Sam in 518 about like how when they had to lock Dean down so he wouldn't go say yes to Michael. Like Bobby checked in with Sam then too. Like we've seen a lot of good Bobby Sam content recently,
which I love. Love that for us. Love that for them.
Yeah, especially considering like the end of last season, we talked a lot about how Sam and Dean's relationship was really rocky, but Sam and Bobby's were also pretty rocky.
Yeah, especially post the demon blood, which is another little thing they mentioned about Sam having to be Lucifer's vessel, is he's got to drink a lot of demon blood, more than he's ever done before.
Yeah,
that seems bad.
Subtle. What are you hiding? What are you hiding, August? That was the most
drawn out thought.
A weird question, huh?
No, I was trying to also think about the like lore of this, because like we don't know about an equivalent. Like Lucifer's an angel. Like Lucifer's not a demon.
Archangel, nonetheless.
He's an archangel, and so is Michael. So like I'm just trying to figure out
how that makes sense.
Yeah, why? Because they don't really explain why he would have to like drink a shit ton of demon blood. They just kind of are like, you would have to drink a lot of demon blood for a reason.
Because that will, it must have something to do with being in the cage.
And if he's his perfect vessel,
if he's made for this from birth, that's why the demon blood's in him in the first place, isn't it? Right?
Right. He's already got like I'm like, if he's a perfect vessel, why does he need the demon blood?
He's like,
he's a bit of a power move.
In this situation is like when you get a family and they move into a new house and they're like, yeah, it's perfect, but you know, it's a fixer upper, but it's actually like in shambles.
Sam's Lucifer's vessel in that way. It's like, well, I need to make some changes first. Like makes me like, he's a bit of a anyway.
By the way, I don't see no ring. That scene never made sense to me because she's wearing fucking mittens. But we aren't here to talk about Frozen today.
No, I'm not going to make another reference to Frozen. Didn't we have this like 3 episodes ago where we talked about Dean and Let It Go? And there is anyway, there will be more. There will be a Frozen reference within Supernatural down the road.
I do remember that,
and it is very good.
And the Fortnite reference, don't forget.
Oh no, that I hate. I just
keep you guys humble, you know.
Yeah. I like that you catch Noah and you're like almost Gen Z catching of references that Elayna and I. It's like we're almost like 3 different sets of references of which references we get.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that our age difference is not like that many years.
That fast.
But because like I'm squarely a millennial. August, I feel like you are on the brink.
Yeah, I have most millennial traits, but
you're on the like higher end of Gen Y and millennial, and I'm on the
and
other
then
end.
Noah, like I hate to break to you, you're Gen Z.
I'm actually not. That's your decision and your choice.
Yeah. Also, I will defend Noah here because I do think that like it depends on the way you're raised than your actual age. Because anyway, but
I was not raised with actual TV. I have not seen SpongeBob SquarePants ever.
So what gen are you then?
I'm Gen Y, right on the bottom edge.
Right, that tiny generation that like kind of exists in between millennials and Gen Z.
I'm part of the generation of the Black Eyed Peas, and there's a little section from 97 to 2000 where if you're from there, you don't fit into the 90s kids, you don't fit into the 2000s kids. You're Black Eyed Peas.
Your generation Black Eyed Peas.
Is this a thing?
It's a thing. Yeah.
Okay. I missed a memo somewhere, but I will accept it. It's a thing
that I've seen a few times on the internet, and I choose to believe it with my whole heart. So
I love having really significant conversations. I like to have this conversation with people about like generations and like which ones people fit into and what the arbitrary rules are, because it's all made up, and it's so fun to just be like, well, you have to be a millennial because you were you are not, it's so funny. It's so funny because it's so stupid.
It's like a step away from like astrology. You know, astrology is great, but like your birthday there's like a somewhat defined section, but there's no ironclad limit for where the generations end. Like it's all.
It was like I saw TikTok recently, and it was just like the guy was like, I need a white girl with a nose ring to tell me what planet is making me sad. And then somebody stitched it, and they just go, Earth. It's definitely Earth.
Accurate.
I was like, oh no, not me watching this as a white them with a nose ring.
Oops.
Okay, Cass still managing to be a badass in a moment.
Always.
Them being like, Pestilence is like, there's not much angel left in you.
Not even a speck.
Maybe just a speck.
It's so good because they're like, oh, not a speck of angel in you. And then he takes that little, he's like, yeah, just a speck. Like, he's learning. He doesn't quite have the catchphrases down. He just took the thing he heard a few words ago.
He's seen his boyfriend do enough catchphrases to be able to like start to pick them up.
He's
That's
working
adorable,
on it.
actually. That's adorable. I also just want to point out that Cass, when he doesn't have all of his angelic powers, becomes more and more feral in his techniques to get the fight done. And this is a great early example of that. This is not going to be the last time that we see Cass when he doesn't have angel powers or they're hampered in some way, and Cass just be feral. Like, he just sort of like launches himself at this guy and takes out the ring, and it's
releases all inhibitions.
And that's what it takes, you know?
Yeah, it's great. I think also just a really nice acting choice / directing choice by Misha and the directors, because it allows us to really like see how Cass functions when he doesn't have his normal skill set, and like I like that changes, and you get to see sort of more desperation, more physicality. You know, when he's angel and he's smiting, he's very like almost robotic and suave. Yeah. Whereas when he's fighting and he doesn't have his angel powers, he's way more physical. He's way more like
Beast
Dean.
mode.
Yeah.
It's a lot more like Dean. He's learning his fighting from Dean.
You have no idea how right you're about that, Noah.
Noah, sit down.
There's gonna be he is learning from Dean.
He totally is.
I also very much really loved how when Cass he called Dean and is like, wow, I don't have any powers, I can't zap anywhere. Dean's first reaction is, oh my god, you need money for a plane ticket? Here, let me ask my dad. No, actually, I'm not even gonna ask him. He'll send it in just a minute. Yeah, my dad's got you. Don't worry, baby, I got you. Instantly.
It's giving my boyfriend is stranded and it's Christmas time.
For real. He's got nowhere to go.
Like, Dad, can my boyfriend come crash with us, please?
Also, side note, I think it's a little suspicious that Crowley had Death's scythe just out of nowhere, which, okay, yeah, King of the Crossroads, sure. But he had it, and then it did absolutely nothing for Dean. He just dropped it, and Death said, oh, thanks for returning that. And that's it. So I think that Crowley set that up as part of the deal with Death. It's like, yeah, I'll get you your scythe back. Don't kill Dean. Give him your ring, etc., etc.
Ooh, or I wonder if going off of that, I wonder if that was part of the deal, but like Crowley was like, he'll be convinced if I give him something that he thinks can kill you. Like that'll be how we'll convince Dean.
Like Death gave it to Crowley to convince Dean that he'd be able to get the upper hand on Death.
With the knowledge that Death could just
come
take it back.
Yeah.
Death could just take Dean is not powerful enough to stop it. Because like also it doesn't make sense that Crowley or anyone Crowley has working for him would be able to get the scythe of literal Death. Who is like probably the most powerful being we've seen other than God.
Which, okay, unless
we haven't actually seen yet.
Unless
who has left the building.
The scythe was captured by Lucifer at some point whenever he got Death under his control way back when.
Okay.
That's actually a really good point.
Because Crowley, I'm king of hell at some point.
Right, before Crowley officially got on Lucifer's bad side, before he officially switched teams.
So there's a few different possibilities.
Maybe that's what cues them to like Crowley's on a different side now. He's taken that scythe.
he took it.
Very suspicious.
Yeah.
Also, just I want to make a point about the fact, not just from this episode, but like this apocalypse is so poorly managed. Like, what is happening? The pagan gods a couple episodes ago trying to rally together, fail. Pestilence is like, I don't fucking care that these are vessels. I will tear them apart and Satan can glue them back together. Iconic. Everyone keeps losing the Winchesters. Like nobody can ever find these two humans.
There's so
Zachariah is dead. Crowley has swapped sides so many times. Like who even knows who he's working for? Like every single species that isn't human is angry about how God likes humans the most, but God has fucked off and left the building. So does God really like humans more? Because he seems content to like abandon the entire world fight over like who gets to nuke the planet. Anyway, badly managed apocalypse.
Too many different sides trying to fight for control, and all of them think they have
a Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and nobody really wins in that one, you know?
Spoiler if we've learned anything from Game of Thrones.
Currently seems like nobody's really going to win in this one either.
Nobody wins, especially the fans.
Except Arya. Arya wins.
we got to talk about the
Bobby and Dean at the end.
Bobby and Dean at the end.
I mean, what do you guys think happens when somebody lies straight to Death's face? Not great things, I
Every
imagine.
time he says that, I'm just like, ooh.
Well, and also Death seems so like observant that I feel like Death feels like he sees right through Dean in the conversation they have.
Mhm.
Dean's not a good liar.
No.
Not when he's feeling vulnerable, and he's feeling vulnerable in that moment.
Yeah.
So I would bet that Death doesn't 100% believe that Dean, believe Dean.
No.
I think he's willing to let Dean try. But I think that, I mean, like, what's he going to do? Like, he gives Dean his ring, but like,
No
in some sense,
instruction.
why wouldn't he?
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, he needs to get rid of Lucifer too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like it's not so much that he needs Dean to hold to that specific promise, but he needs Dean to try his best to stop Lucifer. And
that's the agreement they're coming to. It's not necessarily like by saying yes, you have unlocked a door that is right here.
Yeah, or like saying that this plan with Sam jumping into the cage is necessarily he has to do that plan.
But he sees that Dean is determined enough to agree to a plan like that. And so that means that he's either going to figure out something else or he'll go through with it.
Yeah. And ultimately, like, once Death gives him the ring, like, what's Death going to do? Like, kill them? Like, if he doesn't hold up his end, like, if he doesn't hold up his end and the apocalypse happens, then it doesn't matter anyway. That's going to, like, it's sort of like a moot point, honestly.
Yeah. But I love that Bobby takes all that and turns it right back around and is like, hey, we're just going to do our best to take care of Sam because you know what? He is a hero. He's been running into burning buildings since he was what, 12?
Well,
oh, fuck you, John Winchester. He was 12.
That's okay. Dean's been doing it since he was 4, but who's counting?
The fact that like that's the metaphor. Also, this conversation has like big like two parents talking about their mutual child energy.
Yeah,
like
a
maybe
little
more
bit.
than any conversation we've seen. Like we've seen Bobby talk about them like they're his kids, and we've seen Dean talk about Sam like a kid. But, like this is them talking to each other, and
This
like
is parents.
Bobby says we're hard on him, Dean. Like we've always been hard on him. It's a really heartbreaking conversation.
Yeah,
truly.
Just like I'm glad that this is like Sam really coming full circle with his redemption arc this season. Them going, Sam's got darkness, but like he's got a hell of a lot of good in him too. And he'll beat the devil or he'll die trying. Like Sam is not.
Yeah, every time it gets to that particular line, I'm just like, oh boy. Like it's just so nice to know that like after everything, they still have faith in each other.
And it's nice to see Bobby get to be the one that reminds Dean of that.
Yeah.
And then we come to like that very last line, which really is the crux of the whole plan. And this whole season.
Question of the
what
day.
What are you afraid of?
Losing or losing your brother. And historically,
the letter.
Yeah. So it's like,
like why doesn't Dean like plan? Is it because he thinks it won't work, or
because the cost is Sam?
Yeah, and because this seems to be the one thing that like Dean can't do. Like if Sam is
struggles, he's never been able to let this happen.
And if Sam is truly the only, like Dean hates the fact that if Sam is truly the only one who can stop this, then the biggest barrier to the apocalypse is still Dean.
Yeah.
Because like, will Dean be able to let him?
No, he won't.
Of course he's not.
Damn.
Oof. How do you feel about like where we're at now in this like whole season? Now that we're like sitting on the cusp of the finale.
So it feels like there's still so much to deal with in one episode. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
This whole first 5 seasons has been building up to this next episode, and it feels like there's no way they can deal with everything.
Yeah,
that's fair.
There's a lot,
and I'm sure some of it is going to continue past, and it's not going to wrap up every loose end. But there's a lot that they've been building towards this season alone. That's going to be a lot to pay off.
Yeah,
we still haven't even seen Adam Michael. We've heard about him,
right? We get confirmation of that this episode. That's another thing we didn't talk about, but like, Adam said yes, which I think we all kind of knew he probably would.
Yeah,
he was trapped, and
you kind of saw that coming. Like, was that something you weren't surprised by?
No, I figured that would happen with the potential for him to be a vessel and him being trapped, left behind. Had to be a temporary measure, if nothing else. But I'm dying to see it. I want to see how that works, how that goes.
Ooh, yeah.
There's got to be some sort of big confrontation.
I cannot fucking wait for you to see the end of this season.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna hurt so good.
all many of your questions will get answered. But yeah, a lot to wrap up. And speaking of that,
if you want to hear a little bit more about my crazy predictions for the finale and somebody else who doesn't quite know what's happening but really loves making predictions about what's going on, Jamie from Driver Picks the Podcast and I are going to have a little bonus episode of our own over on Driver Picks the Podcast, and then we'll do it our own special version here on Queering Things after the season 5 finale. So we'll do a little
bit after
a penultimate theory extravaganza with Jamie and I over there on their podcast, and then we'll follow it right back up after the finale with some wild predictions about the next 10 seasons of the show that we have.
Jesus Lord.
I cannot tell you how excited I am that we're getting 2 you and Jamie bonus episodes.
It's gonna be
I'm
great.
So excited.
It's gonna be such chaos, and I cannot absolutely wait.
You said you loved feral Cass. Just get ready for feral Jamie and Noah.
Listen.
Honestly, putting you and Jamie in a Zoom call on your own without any supervision and being like, record 2 episodes of podcasts can only be good. Only be good. We will link to the episode on Driver Picks the Podcast. We will link to it in either the show notes, or if it's not in the show notes, it'll be on our social media when that comes out. Oh, I actually have one final short point, and that's that the Reapers shot, the shot where Dean and Crowley are in front of the warehouse, and Dean's like, so empty, and Crowley's like, there's tons of Reapers, and then they do a pan through and you see Dean's kind of silhouette
over
and
the
you
shoulder.
see the Reapers. It's so visually good. I love when they do that break the fourth wall sort of thing, where they show us through Crowley's perspective and then they show us back through Dean's perspective. Anyway, that's like a short point, but I loved it.
Also important to note that Crowley is added to the list of characters that should be able to see Reapers if there's a big life event, you know?
Right. Okay, that's a
Cass
helpful.
And Crowley, and I think that's it so far. Anna, but R.I.P.
Presumably death, obviously.
I would hope so.
Assume that death can see Reapers.
Can you imagine if you couldn't see your own like employees trying to direct them? It'd be a mess.
A nightmare.
I think that is basically all of our points for the episode itself, but now that means we get to move into going meta. So this is where we talk about lore, representation, behind the scenes trivia, and anything else that we think is important. So first up, we have our rep check.
Honestly, not a lot of great representation. We touched on
not great.
Kind of just erased Bobby's representation this season and how we felt about that. I did love the scene where after that, Dean was like, hey, how was your Rockettes audition? And he says, high kick was fair, boobs need work.
Funny.
That stood out to me as a little queer moment.
Yeah. And it's not played for it doesn't feel as just straight up homophobic of a joke. Like it feels a lot more like actually just a fun little moment that they have with each other.
Of any profession, like the one that uses their feet the most in their eyes are soccer players and Rockettes, I guess. So
it didn't feel derogatory. It didn't feel like that's why Dean was making that joke. It just felt like
it felt like he was making the joke because like Rockettes are like known for their heels.
And very skilled
kicks.
and I agree. It's a fun moment.
It definitely felt more like a queer moment than a homophobic moment for sure.
Which, in this episode we've talked about queer Bobby, we've talked about queer Crowley.
Queer Crowley.
We always talk about queer, we've talked about queer Dean. Everyone's gay here on Queering Things.
It's true.
Anything else representation wise? We don't pass the Bechdel test.
No.
Because we have like one woman with a speaking line. In terms of, I have one pop culture moment that I want to point out that I haven't already pointed out. And that's that at the beginning of the episode, the convalescent home is named Serenity Valley. And I got this from the Supernatural Wiki when I was looking up some details for this episode. It's a very, very small reference.
I never noticed that before.
So I'm just going to read what it says in the Supernatural Wiki. Give credit where credit's due. The convalescent home is named Serenity Valley, which is a battle from the TV series Firefly. Iconic space
cowboy
bound family cowboy show that only ran for one season. So Malcolm Reynolds in that show, Malcolm Reynolds and the Browncoats lost the War of Independence at Serenity Valley. Also, the actor for Crowley, so Mark Shepard, who plays Crowley, he plays a character named Badger on Firefly.
Which is great. His character
He
is
does.
And his character
queer character for sure.
and his
Icon.
character
100%.
references the Battle of Serenity Valley. So it's like a really nice little niche reference to
I
just
had
be
never
like,
made that connection, but that is amazing.
I wouldn't have made it without the wiki pointing it out.
And I mean,
And
the
then I
ship
noticed it.
is also Serenity.
Yeah.
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a
Because
double.
the ship is named after the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
So
it
that's
works
just a
double
good
well.
a good third, like a fourth wall breaking sort of nod to the actors. And Supernatural's done that. They've done this before with nods to the actors, the joke about Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
My
so
Bloody
it's
I think they
Valentine.
reference
named after
Smallville.
whatever.
Paris Hilton, House
Yeah.
of Wax.
Yeah. So, nice,
It's cool
fun,
stuff.
always fun.
I also really liked Cass trying to say, you could say my batteries are drained, and trying to relate to Dean and being like, yeah, you would say it like this. And Dean's like, oh, you got no more angel mojo? And Cass is like, fuck, I missed it. I got it wrong. Okay. Yeah, that's what it was. I'm sorry.
That's really cute.
It's
It
very
is
cute.
so cute how Cass tries out slang
Yeah.
Yeah.
for Dean poorly.
It's so precious.
But
It's
also
so
Dean's slang makes so little actual sense. Like it makes
Yeah.
sense, but he's 90% references.
Yeah.
And so it's always fun when Cass like clumsily tries to emulate that.
It's so good. Wholesome as fuck.
So get this, I was looking into the lore. So I have a question from a couple episodes ago that I can't remember. Did they actually get Famine's ring? Did we see that
Don't think
happen?
we saw it happen, but it was heavily implied because
They
he
just-
just was kind of dead in the chair when we left the episode.
Yeah.
Brings me to like kind of plot convenience moment. Why would they I understand like at that point if he's already dead, why would they bother to take his ring? Like kind of makes sense, but also like at that point they didn't have any idea that the rings would be useful down the road.
Well, but I think they knew at that point that the rings were the source of their power.
Right. But if
mostly,
he's
so they
dead,
were-
does it I don't know.
I feel like if I was fighting the horsemen and I had taken down
You would
two of
take-
them and I knew one of the last two that I was looking for was death, I would be like, yeah, I'm not trusting any kills that I've gotten so far.
Okay. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fair. That's
I
fair.
might just be able
You'd
to
be
bring
like-
him right back.
Right. That's another lore piece we don't actually have clarity on is like death. Can death bring people back?
Can death bring just humans back, or could he bring angels, archangels, etc.? If they got
Other
killed by
monsters?
their blade, like
Demons?
could he bring Gabriel back? That's what I want to know.
Ooh.
I'm still not
Good
okay with
fucking
it.
question.
That would be
I'm sorry, Noah. I'm
It's-
sorry.
it's okay.
Okay, but Pestilence also zaps out of the room after they take his ring. I'm unclear as to what powers they do or don't have once the
Yeah.
rings are gone.
Yeah,
Same with
they
War,
clearly
'cause
have
War also
some
disappeared.
powers without them.
Yeah.
So maybe
It's
he
not-
doesn't have his Pestilence powers, but he still has some generic angel-y powers, but they're not angels.
Yeah, which is
No.
extra like okay, but that begs the question, what are they?
I don't think we actually get an answer to this in the whole show. They're just like being.
Okay.
I
Which
always
is-
pictured them as being like
Primordial
a higher
forces.
level demon,
Mm.
like in the same family as demons.
Right, but Death, I don't feel like Death fits that. I feel like for the other three maybe, but Death
Yeah.
Death is just death, I think.
We've established death is
doesn't
definitely
fit with
different.
these other three really.
Yeah.
No.
Death is like in a different category of power.
Yeah. So the other three could be pseudo angels.
The other three are like the assistants to the regional death.
Right, they just facilitate death. I mean, really, all three of them do. They just facilitate death.
War, death, pestilence, death, famine, death. Yeah, it all
Like
ends
when
up
they,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about Death's Scythe and how Crowley may have ended up with that or may have been given it, etc. A very interesting lore piece that we might come back to at some point.
Well, and apparently, this seems to be maybe the most powerful weapon we've seen, more powerful than the
Ever.
cult, because they can kill demons and angels and reapers and, apparently
archangels.
archangels, which that feels fucking significant.
It feels very
Yeah.
significant if you're in a hunt for an archangel. I feel like,
Yeah.
Two archangels, kind of, mostly
Yeah.
Lucifer, but like, I don't know.
mm,
Not the biggest fan of Michael either. Also, yeah, confirmation of a multiverse. That's
yeah, that's
I
the
did not
most important
realize
bit.
that happened in this
Yeah.
episode. I had fully forgotten.
It's such a big moment too to say.
Yeah, we love a good multiverse.
Yeah, honestly, very much so.
Yeah, that's
There's-
all I'm gonna say about that. But like,
there's no
that's all they've
hoping.
released.
They're laying down plot threads that they pick up 14 years later. Crazy.
Who knows?
Who's
You'll see.
counting?
You'll see. We'll
We
Wow.
find
don't know
out.
anything. We've never seen this show before in our lives.
I mean the Winchesters. They bring it in the Winchesters. The end of that one.
Right. Now Dean knows that there's multiple universes. That's last lore piece. Death says he's as old as God, maybe older. Neither of us can remember anymore. In the end, I'll reap him too. God will die too, Dean.
That line always just like sends me to another dimension.
Huge
How
implications.
did you interpret those lines, Noah, in terms of lore and your understanding of it?
Well, yeah. So I don't know. It was odd because it sort of takes this whole universe and reality that everything they've ever known, from the creation of the archangels to all of it, and puts it in this bubble. And then God and death are these two beings who came from the last bubble and came to this bubble. And they're like, oh yeah, well here now we're in this. We'll make a story here. And then eventually I'll reap him and we'll move on to the next one.
Ooh, okay.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, fascinating.
From their perspective, because they're not going to see us as anything more than specks inside of a bubble.
Right. This is the cycle for them.
Yeah. Mass Effect, how it sort of the spoiler alert, the whole storyline is revolving around a galaxy-wide, universe-wide cycle that everything gets destroyed because it's very complicated. Everything gets destroyed and then it becomes a cycle. Everything comes back and it's slightly different. They guide it to shape evolution over hundreds of thousands of years. And so the more you play, the more you find out it goes back and back and back, further and further. So it kind of feels like that. Cool. These two remnants cross over. They're the two constants. You always need a creator and a destroyer. The yin and the yang
to exist in order for there to be balance.
A little bit, yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. That's some cool thoughts.
I feel like we've been channeling Dean real hard this episode and making this all make sense by relating it to other pop culture. It feels like we've been doing that a lot this episode.
Very pop culture heavy episode.
Yeah, big Dean energy going on.
Big Dean.
You know what? I love it. Oh, I was gonna tell a anyway, never mind. It's not gonna work now. I was gonna tell a story about eating deep dish pizza and I missed my chance when
Here we go. Wait, I got you. One other thing that we didn't touch on much in the episode, the threat of Chicago just getting wiped off the map.
Right.
That's just kind of a big deal that they don't really touch on.
Right. And he's just like, nah, we'll keep them. I like their pizza.
Which, I mean, Chicago deep dish pizza.
The only time I've had deep dish pizza was actually in New York. That's my that's the one time that I had deep dish pizza a couple of years ago. And I was like, deep dish pizza. I was like, okay, it's interesting in concept. We went to this deep dish, like Chicago style deep dish pizza place in New York. And that shit is fucking incredible. It looked, but the deep dish pizza in this episode doesn't look that great.
Mm-mm.
It looks kind of mid, but everybody around
as
them
a
is
person
dead,
who had deep dish within the past week.
See, we can't get deep dish here.
Really?
There's no places that do deep dish here. I had never had deep dish is just hard to find.
That makes me want to weep for you openly.
Yeah.
Because it is my favorite kind of food, period.
Any Canadian listeners out there, if you know where there's some good Canadian deep dish, hit us up.
Specifically in British Columbia, southern British Columbia. Not that there would be in
well, at least now I have another place to add to the list of places to take August when they come visit. You can get some good
deep dish pizza because
there's plenty of places in Philly that have good deep dish.
Yeah, that's where we're going to leave our conversation, and we're going to talk about some blessings for our last part of the episode. Ooh. Noah, who do you want to bless this week? Or Elayna, whichever one of you gets, you can fight for whichever one you want.
I'll go.
Yeah, go for it. I'm undecided.
I'd like to bless Bobby.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
You weren't undecided, Noah. Yep. You were just like, can I really bless Bobby every single episode?
Every episode I'm on?
Every episode. That's why I did it. I was like, he's done it enough.
If Bobby's an episode, no,
Bobby.
I feel like I just couldn't go first because I couldn't not choose him. Somebody else had to choose him first.
So,
I hear you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I choose Bobby because he finally got something back that he had been desperately missing this episode, and I'm also just proud of him for getting to explore his sexuality with a lovely older gentleman demon. So
we
bless
have
him
established that being forced to kiss someone is not great.
That's so true.
Yeah,
but
he also used tongue, so
he was wanting to before the deal was
having some kind of awakening.
It's some subtext there,
and honestly, same. But yeah, blessings for Bobby.
Blessings for Bobby. I'm gonna go ahead and bless Crowley because I think he has made some good steps, great strides to growing actual trust with the brothers, and I think he's going to ruin that all at some point. But for here and now. I love it, and it's very wholesome. And I like seeing him bond with Bobby and Cass as well. That's great. Making a little 5-person team here. I like it.
Yes.
Team free will. Free will.
Team free will +2.
Yeah.
How about you, August?
I want to bless Dean. I think he comes through with some faith for Sam in Sam.
Yeah.
That's cool. He kind of comes through this like process in this episode of being like, well, like before I can even decide about whether or not I'm okay with Sam doing this, like I have to decide if I even believe Sam can. And he kind of comes through that process of like it's not this like trust that he has because everything's always been easy with Sam. It's this trust that he chooses to have because he knows that like Sam deserves that. Sam deserves for him to try to trust him and believe in him and give him this opportunity to like choose this like redemption arc. I think I've always liked that depiction of where their relationship is at this point and like what trust actually looks like, that it's not always natural, like that, you know, he chooses to trust Sam.
But is it supernatural that he just
Yes,
I'll see
definitely
myself
is.
out.
You're watching Supernatural. Yeah, so I want to bless Dean for that process that he goes through.
Love that.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for you folks.
That was a great episode. We definitely stayed on task and on track the entire time.
Hey, we talked about so many fun things.
Exactly.
Listen,
Hey, the people, we hope, we have no idea. We hope the people like when we just talk about stuff.
Oh, no, the people like it for sure. If you don't tell us. If you do, please tell us.
and on that note, you should make sure that you're subscribed to Saving People Queering Things wherever you listen to your podcasts and share our show with your friends.
You can find links to our social media and join our Discord server through our website, queeringthingspodcast.com.
Also out now, Queering People Saving Throws. Our main crew, along with KJ from Supernatural Opinions, are taking a dive into a queer D&D adventure, releasing every other Friday right here on our feed.
Be sure to ride along with us next week as we explore the season 5 finale, Swan Song.
Oh.
With special guests. We have a very special guest joining us who hasn't joined us in season 2. That's Jay, who was on our episode on Crossroad Blues. Very excited to have them back next week. And Sam's going to be back as well next week, I believe. It's going to be fun.
It's a stacked week.
Thank you all for coming along for the ride, and we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again.